Yo, we should be back live again on TOITN on YouTube. We've got an interesting conversation that started offline. That's coming back online. It's Pat versus Phill, and we're talking about fascism and communism and various different ideologies. Yeah, it's an interesting one. All right, I'm gonna get you lot, get you lot in on this. Give me 1 sec. Yo, we're live.
Went off script, and then the government went, "Whoa, hold on a minute." It's like with Germany, like at the start.
Yeah, I just heard no sound. Yeah, I just sorry, bro.
Went off script, and then the government went, "Whoa, hold on a minute." It's like with Germany. It's like at the start.
We all accept there's even within the government itself there are competing factions and the intelligence agencies. But then even if you look at what we would consider to be like federal banks or like the Fed in America, and I guess that it was created post World War One. So for example, in that period, you would have a lot of private corporate interests within behind the shell of sort of the American government that would eventually would have competing interests even amongst the different corporations that comprise
it's like it's like when
for man to say that this government funded these people or this government started this or whatever, even, like at that time, even now, even up until now, all of the intelligence agencies in America are competing for funding or whatever in it. So and have their own sort of independent operations going on around the world. So technically speaking, it's not always like America or Britain that's doing it. If you're not,
but hold on. What?
Of course not. I just wanted to say
agencies working in the interest of James.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, especially
so they're working in the interest of the nation state. Or are you going to say that they're?
No, I agree. That's their all. That's every single one of them. I imagine that to some degree is their mandate.
So then we can. So then we can just simply use the term the USA or Britain then.
100%. But then,
what's your point? If you accept that we can use that term, what distinction are you making?
for example, I remember like when I argue with Liam, he always used to say, the Rothschilds funded Hitler, and I haven't done a great amount of research, but it's from what I found out, from what I've read, it was more Standard Oil and Rockefeller.
Yeah, it was America. Like, because what had happened was
that you can't say the Rothschilds is America and then Standard Oil's America, when for a time in history they were also competing. They were competing business.
Let me explain what happened. Let me explain what.
Working for the nation state, Pat, there is an element of
what
distinction. There should be a distinction made.
But you're talking about corporations there, where you're going from intelligence agencies to corporations.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Can I explain something? Can I explain something?
When I said about the Fed, I wasn't talking about intelligence agencies. And then
you're going a bit. All I'm saying is you're going a bit all over the place. It would be.
No, but you use one specific example for Mussolini, yeah, and he responded with America funding Hitler.
Correct.
Yeah, they did. No, but there's a reason why they funded Hitler. It wasn't because they supported. Like in the early days of Germany, right? Germany owed a fuckload of debt. It's actually quite clever what Germany did. What Germany did was they started. It's really hard to explain. What they did was they engaged in deflation, but they also allowed America a lot of trade into Germany. This is before Hitler, because there was a leader called, I think his name Streicher, and what Streicher did, he was sort of like a shitty libertarian, and he was sort of like trapping America into this debt cycle where he's saying, oh, we'll pay back the debt, you can have more businesses in Germany, and this is how we'll repay it back. So in the beginning of Hitler's early days, America's got a lot invested in Germany. So it's like, okay, then we'll support this man because we won't get our fucking debts repaid. This is why America joined the war late. They joined the war late because they were like, fuck me, Germany owes us like 10 billion fucking Reichsmarks. Do I really want to go fucking war with them and never get that money back? Or do I sort of just want them to fucking win so I can get my money back? Do you see what I mean? That's what they were thinking. Whereas the reason why the war fucking really started, why America declared war and joined the war, is because the German Reichsmark was actually making the dollar like decrease. It was making the dollar decrease in value. So that's it's a weird coincidence that as soon as when the dollar started losing its fucking value, that America was like, yeah, we're joining the war now. Do you see what I mean? They were like, fuck this, you fucking making our dollar lose its fucking value. You crossed the fucking line there, pal. Quick fucking bomb Pearl Harbor so we can fucking get involved.
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's vague sometimes, because when you have these discussions, yeah, and then you say the Americans or the British, and then within that.
But my point is that everyone's. My point is
the Americans are British. They're referring to the state and its apparatus and structures.
Yeah. It's not people. It's just you got to remember. It's just after the Great Depression. Everyone's economy is really fucking fragile. It's really fucking fragile. They necessarily look at each other. They look at each other as economic blocks, and they're like, "Fuck me. We need to keep this fucking pound. We need to keep this pound stable. We need to keep this dollar stable. We need to keep this Reichsmark stable." And Germany and Britain were sort of deliberately fucking over Germany so that they couldn't rise again. They were like, right, we're not fucking allowing them to weaken our fucking pound. We're not allowing them to. I mean, America's main investment was they owe us a lot of fucking money. Germany owes us a lot of fucking money. They're either going to give up their sovereignty and allow us to trade more with them, or they're going to fucking attack us. So we need to keep a close eye on that. But then Germany started weakening because Germany did this on purpose as well. They made the dollar go into free fall, and they made it go into free fall for a reason, so that they could repay their debts back easier. Because if the dollar loses its value, then they can just fucking repay their debts back easier. You see what I mean? And that's what they were trying to do. And then America were like, whoa, what the fuck are you doing? Like, there's actually a really good book on this. It's called The Wages of Destruction. It goes into big detail about, like, before the war kicked off, it was essentially just this. It was what every country was involved in, every other country's fucking economic policy, just to keep their own nation stable. There's really fucking dangerous.
It's called Conjuring Hitler, and it goes into detail of the different elements of Britain and America, from the state structures through to aristocratic family members and companies and businesses.
They were. It's not just that though. It's like Hitler was involved in British economics too. Everyone is involved in everyone. It's like the Americans were involved in funding the Soviet Union, mainly because fucking it did come to a point where fucking they thought, right, this Hitler guy, is fucking is making our dollar weak. He's fucking not repaying the debts back, and fucking he's also building an army because
isn't that just an example of like if you to defend your nation, for example, yeah. You'd imagine there was a consensus amongst within your nation, within the government structure of who the enemy is, for example, yeah. And then, so let's say the enemy are the Soviets, for example, and then let me put it better. So I'm muddling this up. I'm saying if for a period it was Hitler, it was Nazi, National Socialism was the enemy, and then it was Soviet communism were the enemy after that, yeah. If someone if someone within your government was funding both those parties or both those movements from the beginning, or from their conception and inception, as it were, yeah, then technically, how can I put, like, to speak to Pat's initial point, what represents the government then? If everyone, like, or are we gonna say that there's a split in the government, or are we gonna say that was all the government, every single person was acting on their government's behalf, even though, like, if they all had their national interest at heart, but but there were separate factions within that government structure that were funding what the consensus was the enemy, then technically that describes a lot more moving parts than, like, it can't be just
they only become the enemy when the plan goes wrong. It's like with Germany, they were like at the beginning, it's like best fucking pals, we're all best mates.
It brings back to the original thing of going off script, James.
Yeah, since when they go off script and say, do you know what? Fuck you. You're not fucking us over. Because it's like with Germany, what was happening is that America and Britain were fucking over their economy so they could give up their sovereignty. Then eventually Hitler said, I'm not paying you fucking debt back. I'm going to make your fucking dollar weaker.
Forget Hitler for a second. So, for example, let's say while the war was going on, or to remove the monarchy in Russia, they fund Trotsky and Lenin, yeah, for what they don't see Stalin. Is that like kind of like that? They
didn't see Stalin. Well, the thing is, they assumed that they could overthrow the fucking Tsar, and then fucking what would happen with communism is that would destroy the economy, and then the British could come in as saviors, and the Americans and British could come in as saviors of the day, give them freedom and democracy, blah blah blah. You get the fucking George Bush script, and then it'd be over. But what they didn't see is that Stalin really fucking wasn't an actual communist. He was just a fucking evil mother. He was an imperialist. So their biggest fear is imperialism, because if you've got a load of land and that means more than anything, and you can defend yourself. That's the problem with fucking Stalin.
Are you not an imperialist though, Phil?
No, this is one of the reasons why I'm against fucking Hitler and Mussolini. I think that was their biggest fucking mistake.
But some people, when they define fascism, would say that that's an essential part of it.
I wouldn't say it is. No, I wouldn't say it is at all. No,
because if I'm not mistaken, you're the guy who also said, what Greek guy did you say was the
what?
You once mentioned a Greek philosopher, I think, and said
Aristotle
was a fascist. Who was it?
Aristotle.
Yes. Is that?
I can disagree. I can disagree with Aristotle. There's a lot of things that Aristotle said that were fucking stupid.
I'm saying, is imperialism not a core tenet to fascism?
No. It isn't at all. No, it can't. No, it isn't. No, I don't see how it is. It can be, but it isn't always the case. This is why I'm against fucking. Essentially, what happened with Hitler and fucking Mussolini?
Hold on. Pat, can you, without let's not Google on that, but how do you outline? What's your definition of imperialism?
No, I'm saying, hold on, but
why is it a core part of fascism? Why do you think imperialism?
I'm saying that's what people generally say, and even fascists themselves are generally speaking imperialists. So I'm trying to place.
Yeah, but liberal. No, hold on a minute. I don't think that imperialism's a part of fascism, because liberalism is imperialism.
We had this discussion before, and we got on to really the only purest form is Italian fascism. Everything else is
no. I disagree. Like that. It isn't really. Mussolini didn't practice real fascism.
But hold on.
I disagree that Mussolini isn't fascism. He didn't even write his book on fascism, like The Doctrine of Fascism. It was written by Giovanni Gentile. See, this is the thing. There are philosophers.
I said Italian fascism. I said Italian is Italian fascism.
Italian fascism is what
is the purest and only form of fascism, and every other type is merely just fascistic in element.
Well, that's where. I don't want to even say that. Can I speak? Can I speak?
Yeah, go on then.
Right,
no,
so
let him outline the argument, Phil, and then so you be better.
Yeah, I know what he's saying. He's saying that Italian fascism is the purest form of fascism. Then he's going to say, well, Mussolini was the purest form of fascism, and he engaged in imperialism, which is true. But Mussolini didn't write the doctrine of fascism. He didn't. There's nothing in the doctrine of fascism. No, please listen. Listen, there's nothing in the doctrine of fascism or by any fascist philosopher that talks about fucking imperialism, invading other nations, or any shit like that.
No, but guys, let's just deconstruct that so we don't end up just waffling. Fascism, as it pertains to you, describe what ultra nationalism is. That a part of fascism?
All right, fascism is
a hierarchical structure. You agree with?
Yeah. Fascism is national.
Can I reply now, Phil? Though, so
go on then.
Well, Mussolini contributed to that book. So, how are you going to say the doctrine of fascism doesn't talk about imperialism? It does.
Doesn't?
No,
it doesn't.
Mussolini, did Mussolini also write about
the doctrine of fascism?
Was he not involved in that?
That was written by. No, he wasn't involved in writing it. It was written by Giovanni Gentile, and then he larped around as if he'd written it.
You know, so he wrote half the book, I think it's fair to say, or a section.
Yeah, but he didn't talk about imperialism.
Oh, so he did write about half the book.
Yeah, he wrote some of the book, but it was mainly written by Giovanni Gentile.
Was involved in that book.
He was involved in that book, but it's the point is when you read the book or you read fascist literature, it doesn't talk about invading other nations. This is just something that was pragmatically decided in the build up during World War II. Essentially, both fucking Italy and Germany realized that fucking Britain and fucking America and every other nation were engaged in economic warfare with them. They were engaged in economic warfare, so it was like, right, fuck it, we've got to fucking invade some motherfucking people. We've got to take land, we've got to take resources, because if we can't trade with these people, if they're just going to weaken our fucking currency, or we're going to have a war with them, we need to start fucking...
So are you saying that Mussolini bastardized fascism?
Yeah, he did. He bastardized. Yeah, essentially, he took the ideology and then fucking used it for his own fucking whims, mainly because of the war, the situation they were in.
But you accept that he made imperialism a core part of fascism?
Yeah, but he only did that because other nations on the planet, like America and Britain, were engaging in imperialism, and they realized that the only way they could be stable was to fucking engage in imperialism. That's the nature of the world. The nature of the world is that if you don't get involved in imperialism, you're always going to be a weaker nation. Always.
So would it be correct then, Phil, to say you're a purist, and you would say that Mussolini, and if you regard Hitler as a fascist, removed themselves from the ideology of fascism?
Yeah, definitely. They removed themselves from the ideology.
So you will make okay. So in their early days, though, you would say that they were part of fascism.
In the early days, they were embodying the ideology. It's like with Italy. Italy was all right before they fucking invaded North Africa. But as soon as when he invaded North Africa, it's like killing people. That's when I sort of say you're full of shit.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Maybe I'm not the smartest, or I'm not the most well versed in these political definitions there. But from my understanding, doesn't imperialism go hand in hand with this sort of ultra national concept, or like the belief?
How does it? It's the complete opposite.
Hold on, but the belief in one's superiority doesn't that?
Well, James,
hold on a minute.
With Phil, because he's so pure in his definition. No, I'm not taking a piss. He's like a purist in the sense of fascism. If he was to say be an admirer of Mussolini, then you could perhaps dissect him, because Mussolini said something along the lines of rising peoples are always imperialist, something along those lines. But Phil has basically removed them from the realm of fascism and said that they... What would you say they became, actually, Phil? What would you say Mussolini became and Hitler became after the time they let fascism in your eyes?
Well, ultimately, like I said, that the situation was that both of these nations were under fucking threat from other nations. It was like, I mean, America was fucking trying to fucking take over their nations. Britain was as well. So they became sort of they became imperialists. I'm just going to call it imperialists. They became sort of like neoconservative.
So can you not be a fascist and an imperialist in your eyes?
I think you can be, but you can also be I'd say you can be a fascist and an imperialist, but you can be a fascist and not an imperialist. However,
right. So what was it that removed Mussolini and Hitler from fascism then? So it wasn't because they're imperialist. It was
I'd say. But the problem is that you can't sort of tie imperialism to fascism. You can be a fascist and not an imperialist.
Mussolini said that, not me.
Yeah, he became an imperialist, but the reason why was because they were preparing for war. Both Germany and Italy were preparing for war, mainly because they were engaged in economic war, like soft war with America and Britain.
I hear your reasons for why they did it. What I'm saying is, what made Mussolini and Hitler for you leave fascism? Because if it wasn't their imperialism, because you accept that you can be a fascist and an imperialist, so what was it that removed them from fascism?
Now, I'm not going to say that removed them from fascism. I'd say that they are fascists. They just became imperialists. I'd say that.
But you said a moment ago, if I'm not wrong, that they did remove themselves from fascism.
So well, I can be wrong, man. I can be wrong about things. Okay, I accept.
Okay, so because I'm not trying to catch you out on it. I'm saying, so you don't believe Mussolini and Hitler removed themselves from fascism then?
No, I think they did. They just took a sort of an imperialist approach because.
Right. Okay. So we can conclude then that you can be a fascist and an imperialist, and the two most well-known and prominent fascists of the 20th century were both imperialist. And
yeah, they became imperialist. But it's important to talk about why they became imperialists. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well, no doubt. For you, it would be I agree. But
I mean, why do you think? Why? I mean, it wasn't uncaused. Like the reason why Germany and Italy, they didn't just become fucking imperialists for no fucking reason. They became imperialists because.
Yeah, obviously not.
It wasn't just some sort of bigoted approach where it's like we're going to dominate the fucking world and take control of everyone. There was other forces at play, i.e., fucking other nations pressuring them.
Well, hold on. Right, what? Could you give me a year when you think that Adolf Hitler became an imperialist? Then
I'd say, fucking hell, just leading up to, you can go from 1930. It did pretty much start from early on. I forgot the specific dates.
Because you are aware, right? So you're saying like 1938, 1939, those times.
It goes earlier than that. It goes from the start of his fucking reign. In all fairness,
exactly. So no. You're aware of Strasserism, yeah? You're aware of the Strasser brothers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you're aware that one of the main reasons Strasserists had an issue with Hitlerites was because of imperialism, and Adolf Hitler himself said, "We want to model the Third Reich and imitate on how the British."
Yeah, definitely. That was the whole plan. But there was a reason for that, though. The reason was
again, we have generally speaking, fascists are imperialist, and the ones that deviated from it, the Strasser brothers, what happened to them? Well, happened to one of them.
They got killed, but they were fascists as well.
One of them got killed. The other one tried to resurrect his party after the war a few times and failed.
I mean, national syndicalism is still fucking fascism. It's just another branch of fascism.
Yeah, I agree. I'm again. See, people within the fascist movement, they would say, that it's fascistic. They wouldn't necessarily say it's fascist. They would say it's
no. It isn't fascist. I agree with you. Just use that shorthand. It's fascistic. Yeah, it's still the same idea. It's just a different economic position and a different approach on imperialism.
But if you accept that it's not fascist but fascistic, what is the reason that makes it not fascist? Is it
doesn't make it fascist ideology? Because fascist ideology entirely has got a different approach. It takes more of a religious approach as a state. No, I would say it's fascist. It's just a different form of fascism. I wouldn't say it's fascistic. Like you're just tying imperialism to fascism. If you think imperialism defines fascism, then you've got to say America is fascist and Britain is fascist and Russia is fascist.
Hold on, James. One moment. Sure, I hear what you're saying. I'm merely taking from what the two most prominent fascists of the 20th century said.
Yeah, well, that wasn't core to the ideology. They became fascist. They became fucking...
It is a core tenet, and this is of their ideology.
Okay, so you're saying America's fascist then?
I'm saying it's a core tenet of their interpretation, hence why the Strasser brothers went their way, because they particularly had an issue with the imitation of the British Empire and imperialism.
Okay, well, do you think that the British Empire is fascist then?
Gosh, there's certainly fascistic sides to it throughout its...
Do you think America's fascistic?
There's fascistic elements with America's society.
Do you think the Soviet Union is fascist?
Again, you're asking about
every nation on the planet is fucking imperialistic to some degree.
Hold on. You're asking about nation states. I'm saying there's fascistic elements potentially throughout the centuries or decades that they're around.
What does it matter?
Well, no, because you basically, before this got onto this bit, you were saying that Mussolini and Hitler removed themselves from fascism, and the
no, I'd say they removed themselves. I wouldn't say they removed themselves from fascism.
You don't now. You corrected that. You corrected that.
So no. But the point is that you don't need to be a fascist and you don't need to be an imperialist to be a fascist. That's not necessary. You can be a fascist and not be imperialistic.
According to you, whereas other fascists...
No, according to the ideology. Where does it talk about in the core parts of the ideology?
This goes back to Italian fascism being the only fascism, and then we get onto...
No, it isn't. There's different types of fascism. Like, he didn't even invent fascism.
As you
fucking Plato.
As you said a moment ago, you already said you accepted the idea that it would be more correct to call them fascistic rather than actually fascist. That's what real fascists would say. Real fascists would say the only fascism is Italian fascism. Every other one.
No, I disagree. I don't even think that Italian fascism was the real fascism. I'd say Plato's fascism.
If you rewind, you've changed your position a couple of times.
It's like Mussolini and Giovanni Gentile didn't fucking invent fascism. This fucking political doctrine existed way before they did. It's just that it wasn't
even if we go back to who's the guy you just mentioned? Was it Aristotle?
Plato's Republic. Plato didn't talk about imperialism.
Are you sure Plato didn't talk about anything to do with imperialism?
Yeah, I'm quite fucking confident that you can read Plato's read Plato's Republic. Read Plato's Republic, and where does he talk about invading motherfuckers?
Okay, I would have to revise my knowledge on that, but I'm pretty sure that he was very much. There was definitely.
It doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter if I just remove.
If you're saying with certainty he didn't.
He didn't. I've read Plato's Republic.
Okay.
In Plato's Republic, it doesn't talk about...
I don't know on that front, but if we go back to this thing, so originally you did say they removed themselves from fascism. Then you accepted they hadn't removed themselves from fascism. So they haven't removed themselves from fascism. They just took a different approach. I'd just say that. That's all it is. Okay, so the point is, you accept that fascism goes hand in hand with imperialism. And
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Well, the problem is, I can say communism goes hand in hand with imperialism. Liberalism goes hand in hand with.
Yeah, you could.
There's no political ideology you can find on the fucking planet that doesn't go hand in hand with imperialism.
There are certainly some. I'm sure you.
Which ones? Name a nation that's not imperialistic.
Gosh. What's your definition of imperialism then?
Invading a nation to claim their resources for security.
If they weren't existing as a nation state while doing that, would you still?
Globalism is imperialism.
Globalism is just another word for imperialism. I agree, but
everyone's engaged in. If we just remove political ideology,
but hold on. You see, imperialism, right? You define it as simply invading someone else's land to extract their resources. So you wouldn't, for instance, because you're asking me to give examples, you wouldn't say tribes fighting 1,000+ years ago and invading each other's territories and robbing and going back. Would you say that's imperialist?
That's imperialist as well.
You would regard them as imperialist, would you?
Yeah. Also, infecting another country with your own ideology, like America does, like England is becoming American in regards to its culture via imperialism, via propaganda.
Would you accept England infects other countries with its ideology?
Yeah, every country does. Every country that's got its own ideology is in imperialism. Even Muslims engage in imperialism. Jews, Christians, fucking.
You sure? Look, you can make all these arguments. Communism, imperialism, liberalism, imperialism. What we're saying is, though, that the two biggest leaders of the 20th century fascists were both imperialists.
Yeah. Well, everyone's a fucking imperialist. We've already just established that every nation and people.
I'm not an imperialist. You're not.
What's your ideology? What's your political ideology?
Irish republicanism.
You're republicanism. Well, that's imperialist.
How's
Irish Republic?
Well, how's Irish republicanism imperialist?
Well, so you're telling me that fucking they're not trying to invade Northern Ireland, the Irish Republicans?
Wow. So that's what you think Irish republicanism is?
So there aren't Irish Republicans who have not engaged in imperialism?
So you think Irish Republicans taking over the north of Ireland, which was invaded by the English, is imperialism?
It kind of is, because these people in Northern Ireland want to be fucking part of the United Kingdom. They've chosen that.
Hold on, Phil. The people you refer to in the north of Ireland that want to remain part of the so-called UK are the descendants of people that was planted there from mainly Scotland. So they're colonial settlers. They're the descendants of colonial settlers. So their national rights mean absolutely nothing. Okay, so you cannot refer to Irish republicanism and imperialism because the North of Ireland is part of Ireland. It's not part of Britain. It's not a fragment of Britain. The same way Britain is not a fragment of France.
Listen, I can support you.